So if you've followed me for any period of time, I probably at some point in time, or probably more than once, have knocked on CrossFit quite a bit. And there's many reasons to not like CrossFit, from the founder being a total jackass uh, to the unsafe principles behind it, and who it is specifically marketed towards. CrossFit, oftentimes, you got this person that is working a desk job all day long. He doesn't have, or he or she don't have a lot of experience in the gym, and then we're going to put you into a CrossFit gym, and we are going to have you do these really complex full body movements that are oftentimes Olympic level movements, and we're going to be having people who are untrained do them, and we're going into what's referred to as the power phase of training. And power phase of training is when we are trying to move a heavy weight or moderate to heavy weight, right, relatively fast, and generate a lot of power really fast. And I know I'm kind of misrepresenting that from the traditional sense to kind of this modern sense, because when we talk about power training in the past, you're going to be talking about Olympic power lifts. These are things where you're like snatching a bar up, and then you get into these big poses, and you're moving that weight very fast for like one rep here or there. And there is an entire philosophy of training around that. But in order for us to be able to perform that, we need to take the time to actually do all the steps, which can take a year to several years to get us to the point where we can do that safely. And what I do not like about CrossFit gyms is that most of them kind of skip through all of the development that goes into doing those power lifts, and they're just dropping you into the deep end and hoping that you can swim. And I've seen, again, a lot of personal trainers. I've seen people who are advanced athletes who go into CrossFit and get injured. They might get rhabdomyolysis. Rhabdo, which I've mentioned before on the channel, is going to be when your muscle tissues break down. They float through your circulatory system, make their way back to your kidneys, and then they clog your kidneys, and you have to go ahead and dialysis or you die. It's a relatively serious illness that happens. It happens mostly to people who are undertrained or untrained. So it can happen if you're running a marathon. It can happen. I actually met a person that had one night, who was a more bodybuilder focused person, and he's just like, okay, I'm just going to grab a weight that's kind of more moderate for me. It's nowhere close to, obviously, his 20 rep max. I think it was probably like 35-pound dumbbells or something. And he's doing bicep curls. He can probably, bicep curl 80-pound dumbbells or heavier, right? He's using 30 pounds, and he's like, I'm just going to go and do 300 reps in a single set, and just see what kind of size I can get. And the next day he couldn't move his arms. So he goes to the hospital, flops his arms up onto the desk, and says, what's going on? And they're like, we need to do a blood test. They draw some blood. Oh, you've got rhabdo. Spent his day on dialysis. So, it's not just people who are untrained. It can happen to people who are more trained, but it does happen more often to people who are undertrained. So when we get into powerlifting, I know I'm speaking about these in two very separate contexts. Whether it's doing an Olympic lift and then boom, getting up there and doing these powerful movements with really heavy weights, and moving that weight very, very fast. We have to go through all the different steps. So from that stabilization phase, where we are trying to just teach our joints and our stabilization muscles how to stabilize. Then we go into our basic form, learning how to do the exercises with light weight for many reps, and then we start breaking down our reps until we get to a low end, and then we develop our muscles so that they can actually take that kind of power, and then we go into power training. So if you get nothing else from this playlist, it is that we are trying to go in a step-by-step manner in order to prevent injury as much as possible. And the question is how applicable is traditional powerlifting to wrestling, right? Well, I mean, if you are just doing one rep of a powerful movement and then you're waiting 5 minutes before you do your next set, you're not doing anything that is going to be particularly applicable to a wrestler, in my opinion. So that brings us over to the other form of what I consider to be power training, which is, your high intensity interval training, things like that. And the big difference between that is that we are probably going, 40 minutes to an hour with not a whole lot of rest. There'll be, maybe we'll have a circuit here or there, with 3 exercises and we go through it for 5 minutes, and then we'll have a couple minutes rest, and then we'll go into the next circuit, or however we're structuring that particular workout, right? It may be we have 2 circuits with 8 exercises in it, and we're doing each one of them in 20-25 minute blocks, trying to get as many rounds as possible or something like that. Different ways that we can do that, but the point of this is that we are getting our heart rate up. We are doing lifts that are usually compound movements that are going to be using all kinds of parts of our body. We're going from one thing to the next to the next to the next in a high intensity circuit manner. And this is going to be, building up our endurance. It's going to be challenging our bodies in different ways, and it's potentially one of the most applicable ways of approaching fitness training for grapplers, because we are trying to build that strength, we're trying to build that endurance, we're trying to build endurance in our strong muscle fibers, right? And that's a big thing, right? If we're just running all the time, we are not developing the strength along with the cardiovascular endurance, and we want both. So doing circuit training that challenges your muscles can challenge your muscles to get some growth. You're not going to get huge doing this type of training, but trying to challenge it so that we get endurance along with strength. It's just like doing like applied sciences versus theoretical sciences, right? You take the theoretical science, and then the person looks at that and says, how can I apply this and actually make it, make people's lives better? How do I actually turn this theoretical science into building an electric vehicle, right? So we have to, have that attitude of how do we take these types of gains and make them applicable to our sport. So again, this is going to be trying to build up our base endurance. So let's go ahead and start talking about programming a little bit more.